Hey, soulmates, I am Dr. Sabrina, and I want to welcome you to FOXSOUL's special edition of Dr. Sabrina Unlocks, the Single Mother's Chronicle. Did you know that March is Women's History Month, as well as today, March 21st, is National Single Parent Awareness Day? But too often in our community, being a single mother, you get a bad rap. But I have an amazing group of women with me to join me in this ride that we're going to take in this discussion about the challenges, about the frustrations, about the things that irritate a black single mother, and things that just make them feel stuck. And so I'm not only going to be talking to them about it, but I'm going to be offering up some tips of my own that I give and share with single parents. And so I want to make sure that they feel informed as well as empowered after this discussion today. And let me tell you something, soulmates. Come on in. Come on in. Let me tell you something. You can join the conversation because we want to hear from you. We want to be engaged with you. So if you have a comment or a question, I want you to go over to our YouTube page and type it in, and we will hear from you. So I want to go right into who my incredible guests are. First, I have Delronda Hood, aka Big 50. She has a movie about her life over on BET. And then I have Audra Sinnett. Audra Sinnett is a business owner as well as a single mother. And then her daughter is with her, Nia TIPPETT, and she is a single mother. So we're going to be talking to them about both being single mothers. And then last but definitely not least, we have PILAR Donnelly. And PILAR Donnelly is the single mother of twin 6-year-olds as well as a business owner. And then later in the episode, I'm going to bring out somebody extremely special. Yes, Jackie Chisholm will be with us a little later. And so as we dive into this discussion, I want all of you mothers, all of you women, to understand that we are the doorway to the universe. Don't nobody get here unless they come through one of us. So I'm celebrating all women, but specifically single mothers. And tonight I want to talk about, in recognition of some incredible single mothers, we have some single mothers who've raised some transformational children. And so first I want to highlight Miss Gloria Carter. And y'all know that last name. That is the mother of none other than Jay-Z. Then we have Janice Combs. Janice Combs raised Sean Diddy Combs. And then we have Elizabeth Jackson. I like that last name, Jackson. She is the mother of the hardest working actor on the planet, Samuel L. Jackson. And then we have Miss Cora Blige. And Cora Blige is the mother of none other than Mary J. Blige. And so these women are great examples of what it means to be a successful single mother who's done accessibly well with their children. However, there's some stereotypes that we hear in the community about single parenting. There's a statistic that says 70% of all black children come through unwed mothers. That's a fact. But even with that fact, we hear in the barbershops, in the nail shops, when people get to talking about single mothers, we hear some negative things. We hear things like they are just trying to trap a man. They are trying to get welfare and stay on welfare, or that they're just making poor decisions. Well, I want to ask my girls that's with me tonight, let's talk about some of these stereotypes. Hey ladies, what do you think are some of the greatest challenges facing black single mothers today? And I'm going to ask Nia first. Now look at her face. I just want to ask you first.
I think that's quite funny because I probably have the fewest notches on my belt in regards to experience. But, I appreciate it. Some of the biggest challenges, honestly, I would have to say, what we're here to talk about are just like the stereotypes and having to consistently battle those stereotypes and the negative connotations surrounded around single motherhood. Because honestly, everybody's experience is very subjective to what they have going on in their particular lives. So to have a blanket statement overall as far as what parenthood in general should be, honestly, to me, is up to, especially in 2022, when we're living in array and several differences in experiences. So I think that is the biggest challenge.
Well, let me hop over to your mama, because while you were talking, her head was shaking, the earrings moving. What would you say, Audra? Biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge is dealing with preconceived notions, prejudices. And really, for me, I really feel like it's the church. It's all this Christianity, it's all of these rules and regulations of what a family should look like and what somebody should do when they're raising a child and how they should raise a child, and them not being consistent. They in the church doing whatever they want to do all day long. And then when a woman decides to raise a child on her own, it's looked at negatively. How dare you? It's 2022. Who we shaming about having a single parent? Come on, man. Marrying women, everybody doing what they want to do. I raised a child.
Yes, you did.
I don't have a problem with being a single parent, and I don't have a problem with anybody thinking something wrong with it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Bring her back. Hey, 50, what you think?
Hey. Well, I raised 3 children on my own. You know, their fathers was around, but I didn't think that he was really ready for children.
Okay.
But I was ready, you know, so therefore I didn't look for a man. I never looked for a man to do anything for my children, even the fathers. If they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it. My responsibility is to take care of my children. Okay, I didn't have these children by myself, but my responsibility as a parent, I took care of my children. And I did a damn good job of doing it.
I think everybody has turned into talking about what type of parent they are. Y'all not even answering the question. The question is, what are the biggest challenges facing single mothers today? So I'm going to turn it over to Pilar. You got to bring it home, girl.
I will say, first of all, Audrey, you spicy today. The biggest challenge, I think, is just judgment and preconceived notions. Like, a woman did something wrong to put herself in this situation, or if she's alone with something in a situation by herself. And I think we just got to start making like assumptions and judgment calls. And like Nia said, just blanket statements, because everyone's situation is different and the backstory is not the same for everyone.
Okay. So now I'm going to jump over to Big 50. Because Big 50, we know your story, but I want you to give us just a few little highlights of what your story is, why there's a movie about you, and then how did that affect your children, the things that you went through?
Well, the movie is about just not drug dealing. The movie is about redemption, change. I did a Trap Queens, American Gangsters Trap Queens, and I was called one day after Trap Queens about 6 months later, and to come into Viacom because they wanted to talk to me about a movie. So I'm like, wow, why me? You know, but Viacom thought that mine on Trap Queens that I was a little bit more interesting. Not to say the other girls wasn't interesting. They just knew it was more to Big 50. So I was called in for a biopic.
So let me ask this question, because I want to get right, because I know you said it's more than just drug dealing, it's about redemption, but you did a couple of things. It wasn't just drugs. What were some of the other things, and how did those things specifically impact your children? Because you did prison. Am I correct that you did some time? Did you go to prison?
Okay. I went to prison a couple times.
Okay.
I defrauded the government. That was one charge.
Okay.
What else did I do? I defrauded the government. I had a drug charge, and this last was a gun charge.
Okay.
Drugs was involved. I didn't get convicted for the drugs, but I got convicted for the gun, and my son got convicted for the drugs, my older son.
Okay. And so how do you feel those choices specifically impacted your children?
Well, first of all, me leaving them all the time. It's like, it was just like all the time. My children were very upset that you leaving again, Mom. And, that just got to be a bit much for me. And I had to have my parents to come and stay at the house, trying to not take the children out their environment. So that was very, very, very impactful for me and my children. For my children had to see me leave all the time. And they ask all the time, like, you got to leave again. I had them lying to the schools that I went to, military or the army or something, So
just keeping them, having them in a place where they are not telling the truth because they don't want your story to be told. Now, I saw the movie, and there's a scene in the movie where your daughter is saying something to you that's kind of checking you or brought it up that you were dealing drugs. And so my question to you is, in that moment when she said that, how did it make you feel, and then how did you handle it?
Well, I felt terrible because my children never knew that part about me. I'm going to say this, and I have to say it again, very privately. My kids did not know anything of what I was doing in the streets because I never put anything around them. I never did any dealings around them. What happened is when my children started to grow up, they started hearing it in the streets. At the schools, they'll talk about it. Oh, your mom hurt people. Oh, your mama deal drugs. And, my children heard that from the streets, but they knew nothing of that. My kids, at one time, it was funny because they went to private school. So all the children in there, brothers, and the children in there, the teachers was asking the children, like, hi, what do your mom do? What do your dad do?
Okay.
And the kids were stating what they did. But for me, my daughter, she couldn't tell them because she really didn't know. She was like, oh, my mom, she does massages.
Wow.
So she really didn't know.
That's interesting. I want to open it up for the other women on the panel. Have you ever made some choices or some decisions that have negatively impacted your child, and how did you get past it?
Well, I'll go. So when I went from being a multimillionaire to homeless, and that definitely affected my child. I mean, she was used to driving Mercedes and having a housekeeper, and we went to living on somebody's couch, so that was, and all our stuff was in storage. And the biggest, it was one time she said to me, she felt like I put all those people before her. And I'm thinking, of course, my child's the most important thing to me, but decisions that I made that put me in that situation. And she was talking about how I helped so many people and I did so much for all these people that didn't stand by me and all of this. But had I made different decisions, I had put, had I seen myself as a single parent, I never did. I had a wonderful village. I had people. I never seen myself as a single parent. And I think if I looked at myself like that, like, oh my God, I don't know. I had to put her first, but how we got through it was we talked through it. When she told me that, I had to digest it. I had to that and process it. And then I realized that a lot of decisions that I made when I paid people's mortgages up and saved their houses, I was taking that money out of her college fund.
Wow. Let me go, because we have our soulmates, and we have a question from one of our soulmates, and this question is specifically for Big 50.
Hey 50, my name is Shamika from Detroit, and my question for you is, what was parenting like after you came home from being incarcerated?
Oh, thank you. Well, parenting, I just jumped right back into it. My children was a little older. This last time when I came back home in 2015, my daughter, she had moved to LA, and reason being, she said the home didn't feel like a home. So my other two children, it was great. We just got back together like nothing ever happened, We don't want the drama in the household, you know, or around us. So my kids didn't treat me any different. It was just like I never left.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your input, all of this. Stay tuned, because right after this break, I have my girl coming, the eldest of the Clark sisters, Jackie Clark Chisholm, and she's going to talk about being raised by a strong, single black mother. So stay tuned, soulmates. Come on back. Welcome back, soulmates. I'm Dr. Sabrina, and you are watching Dr. Sabrina Unlocks, the Single Mother Chronicles. And yes, we have some incredible guests. And I want to welcome to our discussion none other than my sister, Jackie Clark Chisholm of the legendary Clark Sisters. Hey, Jackie.
Hi.
So before we get into your question, I want to go back to something that 50 said. And so I want to use this as a moment to give a tip or a tool on how to deal with something. So you may be a mother right now that has made a decision that has negatively impacted your child. One of the things you have to do is own it. You own what you've done. You've owned it. You take responsibility for it. And then, because you can't heal from a thing unless you're real about a thing, and now you have to say, what am I going to do differently? Because you can't say that you want it to be different and keep doing the same thing. But if you're going to be changing, if you're going to do it different, be open to thinking differently, because what you think is what you speak, and what you speak is what you create. So if you're looking at your life and you don't like something, start looking at what you're thinking and start talking differently. So that's the first tip for today. And so I have Jackie Clark here. And Jackie Clark, of course, you all know her. Her sisters and her were raised by Maddie Moss Clark, the late, great Maddie Moss Clark. But in that, there was a time that they became being raised by her and her alone. And so, Jackie, I want to ask you, what were some of the challenges or sacrifices that you saw as being raised by a strong single mother?
I think a lot of it kind of stunted me from becoming who I probably could have become. Not that I'm not proud of who I am, but I think a lot of it was because I was a teenager trying to, you know, fill in the gap for my mom when my mom was out trying to, you know, do ministry. She left me in charge because she knew that when she left me in charge, that whatever she wanted me to do, that it was going to be done correctly in the way she would want it to be done. So I think a lot of probably of what I would think would be just times when I could have been, you know, more involved with my sisters, playing with them, doing things that they wanted, you know, wanted me to get involved in, but being a responsible person and taking on that responsible role took me out of that position and put me in a position of being accountable. And not only being accountable, but being responsible for the things that my mother left in charge of my hand.
And so let me ask this question, because when you talk about the fact that you, because you were the eldest sister, you had more responsibility put on you. You had more things that you had to do. And so you said it may have stunted things that you could have done. Get what stunted in what kind of way?
I would say just like, pretty much like I wanted to go to school to be a doctor. My parents couldn't afford that. Had my mom been able to, you know, be more versed in how to get funds for me to go to school, to do the things that I wanted to do, you know, kind of those are things as a teenager, you think, you know, when my mom is supposed to do that or my mom is supposed to do that. Not so much that I wasn't able to accomplish what I wanted, but because of those things, you know, it trickles down to something else. So that's the reason why I say that. And only because I don't down what my mama did at all, because remember, I didn't know from a parent's perspective, we can only give our children what we've been given and what we have created for ourselves to learn and become better parents as our children are growing up in our presence.
Well, you know, I want the audience to understand that sometimes when we talk about sacrifices and sacrifices that a single mother is making as she's raising her children in our Black community, let's talk about some of those sacrifices. Now, as mothers, all of you are mothers, what can you say are sacrifices that you've made? or that you're making, if any? Any sacrifices that you feel that you're making or that you have made? Lara first.
I think the sacrifice is making a conscious decision to be a single parent, knowing that, I have this sensitive situation with my children's father, and there's a chance that he's not going to be around. And that was a conscious decision I had to make, that am I a person that is well equipped and properly prepared to not raise just one, but two people who are developing, going through the same things in life at the same time. It is overwhelming. And I know realistically, I'm amazing, but there are days I'm just not enough. I can't be two people. And so I think that the sacrifices that I make, because I end up depleting my energy reserves, to pour into my kids to make sure I'm as enough as possible, if that makes sense. And so that's a huge sacrifice. I know sometimes, I could be exhausted or, maybe irritable or something like that. And, kids, they didn't have to be here.
They didn't. And let me say to the audience, when Pilar talks about being overwhelmed and all the things that goes with being a single parent, but being a single parent of twins, that's even more piled on it. But if you right now are sitting in a space and you feel overwhelmed, understand that it is okay to get help. It is okay to ask for help. And even if that help is professional, it's okay. Because in any given situation, at any given moment, all of us need help. We were created to be interdependent and not independent. Okay, anybody else want to share a sacrifice?
I feel like I have a very interesting sacrifice that I made. Me and my daughter's father, and I'm very intentional about saying my daughter's father, not baby daddy, because I just don't like the connotations behind baby daddy and baby mama, right? So my daughter's father and I, he was my first boyfriend, my first, all that stuff, I was just so in love and all that young puppy love stuff, right? And we started dating my senior year in high school, and we ended up breaking up my senior year in college while I was pregnant. And at that time, I feel like I was dealing with two things, right? I'm like, oh my God, I'm pregnant in college. This quote unquote wasn't supposed to happen to someone like me. I was the president of my sorority. I was the president of another organization while trying to figure out what in the world I'm about to do in my life after I graduate from my university. And then simultaneously, my heart is in pieces because this is the first person I've ever loved in my entire life. This is the first man I've ever kissed. This is the first person that ever told me I was just so beautiful. Like my heart is breaking. And I wanted to hurt him the way that I felt that hurt. And what I had at my disposal at the time, honestly, was my daughter, was me being pregnant. I was threatening him, like, I'm going to get an abortion. And when the baby was there, I'm like, I don't want you to go to any of my doctor's appointments. I really tried to create a rift and use that to hurt him. And I remember one day laying in the bed, I was just like, I am so miserable trying to make this man miserable. I have to let it go. And I have to learn how to compartmentalize the two different things that I am going through. Because this human being that I love 100%, how can I love her 100% when I hate the other 50% of her? That's not me.
Ooh, now that's a tweetable. Somebody need to tweet that, because that is so true. When you have made a child with someone and they look just like the person that you just had a person.
Okay, she looks just like him,
Okay. So I have somebody from a soulmate just made a comment. And so they said, I wonder why. This is Looks with Lori. Looks with Lori says, I wonder why there isn't a weak black men who abandon their responsibilities, Chronicle. Weak black men who abandon their responsibilities, Chronicle. Y'all think it should be a chronicle like that?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody said no. Somebody said yes. Why you say no, Audra?
because that's way too much negative energy, because I know a whole lot of really good Black men that raise on their own. Our story, which is now her story, is my story. It's not negative. She has the best father of a child ever. She just may not have the best relationship or mate. He wasn't marriage material, but he's definitely daddy material. And I don't think that we should. I mean, they have challenges just like we have challenges, and they look at things differently than we do. Most of the men that aren't around say they aren't around because of the mother, because of that hurt that she just had. Most women don't let it go. Most women don't realize, I'm miserable trying to make him miserable. They just miserable.
And let me say this to all our soulmates out there. If you are hurt, heal. Take some time to heal. Take some time to get to know yourself and to forgive yourself for whatever your part was in the breakup. Forgive yourself about the choices that you may have made that got you to this point, because 9 times out of 10, you have seen some signs. You have seen some red flags, but because he was fine, because he told you you was pretty, you let the red flag go. And so pay attention to what people do, not just what they say, because the number one way to learn a behavioral or a social skill is by modeling. Oh, we do what we see, not just what we say. So it's so important that we are able to do that. Anybody else want to chime in on whether we should have this Chronicles for the sorry, weak men who abandoned their child?
It's negative, and honestly, I think that more than just you, yourself, and your children in the equation, and the men suffer from it. Sometimes this man has other kids. I mean, I almost bought a billboard off 59 and Chimney Rock in Houston to put his face on there so that all of Houston could know he was trash. And it's not that expensive, but I was just like, why would I do that? You know, he has other kids, and ultimately, I just don't want to put that energy out there, and I'm better for it.
And then let me say this. In order for you to get to a place of healing, that sometimes you don't want to have to backtrack through all the muck and mire that you did because of you being hurt. So I want you to think about it, and think about, we're going to talk about this, the benefits of forgiveness. So coming up next, we're going to be talking about the big D. Dating while single. Stay tuned. Be right back with you. Hey to my soulmates, Dr. Sabrina here, and you are tuned into Fox Special Edition of Dr. Sabrina Unlocks. And we're unlocking the Single Mother Chronicles. And so every segment that we've had, we've dived into some discussions about some challenges. And so I've tried to pull in things that you can do if you find yourself in that seat to unlock you, whether it's about forgiveness, whether it's about the sacrifices that you're making, whether it's about healing from the things that you've done. So we're going to dive in a little deeper, and we're going to keep the conversation going. And oh my goodness, as we talk about the big D. Yes, dating and being single. So joining us for this amazing conversation, you know, the girls on the stage. We have Jackie Clark-Chisholm, we have Audra Sinnett, we have PILAR Donnelly, we have Nia TIPPETT, and we have Big 50. Rhonda Hood is her real name. But we are talking about being single mothers, and we specifically want to talk about what it means to be single and dating, because I don't care what age you are, I don't care how many kids you have, dating and being a single mother can be a challenge. So let me talk about the movie that was one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite movies was in 1974, and it's called Claudine. And in Claudine, it's a great example of the different layers of issues that couples deal with when they're trying to merge or blend families. And in Claudine, Diane Carroll, with her gorgeous self, was a 36-year-old single mother of 6 children who was dating James Earl Jones. And so in this movie, it's a great example of one of the laws in my book. I have a book called He's Not a Statistic, 12 Laws for Single Mothers Raising Black Males. And in this book, I talk about in lesson number 4 about being an example of real life, because you're not just a parent. You are a parent, but you're also a woman, you're also a sister, you're also a friend. And so being an example of that for your children to see. And so I want to talk to my panel here today about what are some of the challenges about dating while being single. So specifically, I want to talk to the millennials, the young people on the panel. Pilar, Nia, what's going on? What challenges? Look at Audra's face. She's like, I'm not talking to her. No, boo. No, not you. Not over 50. We do them in a minute. Okay. Nia,
no.
Nia, Pilar.
Well, dating is difficult for me. I don't have a co-parent situation, and so surprisingly, there are a lot of men in their 30s still with no kids. And so if a man wants to take me out, it's kind of like, well, you got to catch me between like maybe 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. like for lunch or something. Because otherwise it's like dinner. And then it's like, I have a problem just giving a guy a chance. I don't want to sit across the table from anybody for 2 hours if I don't think it's going anywhere. I feel like I'm wasting your time. I'm wasting my time, and I can just eat food by myself. And I have to navigate that, because dating is just seeing what's out there, seeing what you like. It doesn't mean there's this forever commitment. And then there's just the bad apples, I guess, that I'm just like,
I think everybody gets that. Everybody gets the bad apple thing. Nia, how's it impacting you?
I have a phenomenal village of people that with me and my daughter. So having access to dating isn't necessarily a problem, because my village is honestly off the charts. But what makes me anxious or apprehensive is just men in general, right? Like, what are your morals? What are your values? Like, do you have kids? How do you treat your kids? And then how is your relationship with your, children's mother? And me, I feel like I'm very hyper aware of that, because thank God my daughter's father and I have a very good co-parenting relationship. So I'm just like always very curious as to what that looks like. And then like, what is your parenting style and all these different things, because I feel like me and my village, we're very solid, and we are on the same page, and we have how we want to raise her on lock. So I really don't need anybody else coming into the mix with any type of mess, because we're good over here. So you just it's hard for me to have this mindset of like blending versus, are you going to go with our program or what?
Now that's interesting that you even said that, because did you know that every single day in America, 1,300 blended families are created? Every single day. So that means blended families are an issue that we have to learn to talk about. But even to get to the point of being a blended family, you have to deal with dating. You have to deal with what things are appropriate, what things aren't appropriate. And some people are stuck right there. They don't want to date in this new virtual world, because a lot of people are dating online, and look, you clap your hands. What do y'all think about the whole dating online and being a single mother?
No, I don't like dating online.
No dating online?
I think dating online is great.
What you say? What you say, Audra?
I think it's great. You can weed them out, and you don't even have to bring them to the house or nothing. I wish it was more popular when I had her. When I was raising her, I just didn't date. I threw myself into my work, but I didn't date. I snuck and crept a little bit. I was sneaking.
Did you say you sneaking?
I always like to date. I always like to date with people, know other people. When friends know friends.
Being introduced. They can introduce you, and you know somebody.
But they know the kind of guys I like. So I don't want to do the dating online thing, because to me, that really doesn't work out for me. So if someone introduced me, that means they know a little bit about me. And first of all, I'm not gonna date no
We
type
have
wife.
ladies, we have a question from a video. So we have a question from Sandra Charleston.
Hi, I am Sandra Charleston. I have a question regarding parenting and dating. When you're a single parent and you're dating, and when you go out on a date, do you think it's appropriate to get to-go meals for your kid or kids? And should your date pay for that as well? And when is it a good time to introduce your date to your kid or kids? If you've been dating for a long time and you guys are getting serious.
That is such a great question, and I'm going to reserve my answer to the end. So anybody want to chime in? If you're on a date, and is it okay to get a to-go meal for your kids, and should he pay for it? What you think?
With me, I would say I'm not going to ask some male that I'm on a date with to buy my children some food, because I am that woman, and I'm going to make sure my children eating before I leave, to go on that date. So my kid's going to be fed. But now, another story, if they want to give me a few dollars, then I can do what I want to do with my kids. I can buy whatever I want to buy. But
let me segue right into that second part of the question, because when is it appropriate and a good time to introduce your children to someone you're dating? Do you have a rule of thumb?
When you get to know them.
And so I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that means, when you get to know them, because what gets to know them for one is some different for somebody else. Because I know people that get to know each other that same night, that same day.
I don't bring men home to. I never really brought men home to my home anyway to meet my children, unless we started to go together or something, and you could meet the children then. But I need to know with a man. When I'm dealing with that man and I'm going out with that man, I want to know the family values. I want to know how he treat his mother, his sisters. I don't just bring any man home to meet my children. No, that's just never been me.
I want Jackie to weigh in on this, because you got a daughter. She's single. What are some of the things that you think is appropriate in this whole space of dating in this new virtual dating world? What do you think?
I think a lot of times what I look at is if it's fixed for you, if it works for you, then fine. But to me, I wouldn't do it. I do have some friends who have done it and who have gotten married in the process. But I think it's like the 50 said, it's got to work for you. I wouldn't want to do something I wouldn't do anything like that, because first of all, I got to be able to know what kind of morals you have. I wouldn't want to engage myself and spend my time talking to somebody who, at the end of the day, I found out that they're just a gold digger, or they're somebody who's got another wife somewhere else, but they're trying to. I couldn't deal with that, and that's not just with online, but that's in general. We have to really be able to talk to people and focus in on where their head is before we go heads over heels with these people. And by all means, I agree with 50. I would never take my kids out and let no man pay for my kids. No.
Y'all heard it right here. No, that first part of the question. But I want to give some tips on what things you should consider when it's time for you to introduce your child to someone that you're dating. The first thing that you have to consider is that your children may secretly be still wishing that you and the parent, if they know the parent, are getting back together. That's something that you have to consider as far as their feelings. So have a discussion with them, especially if they're old enough to have the discussion that you've been seeing somebody that you want to talk to and you want to involve them and introduce them. Secondly, before you ever introduce them to your children, especially if they're small children, you need to make sure you know some things about them. You make sure that you know their friends, their family, and maybe introduce him to friends and families of yours so they can get a gauge. So have a circle around you that can look at that person as well. The third thing I would say that is important for you to do is to give yourself the time and space to just get to know the person and spend time talking to them and having a conversation about meeting your children. if they have children, when is it appropriate? And because you're beginning to blend the family, and so that's so critical. And so I want to help you unlock this. The fourth thing that you need to do is to make sure it's a type of thing that the children are with you, you're with them. It's not a spend the night type of thing. It's just going out. You may go to the carnival, you may go to the park, where you just get to see how you can develop the relationship. So if you're stuck there, those are some things you need to consider. And so it is time for us to go into our next break. And as we go into the break, I want you to know that there is an African proverb called, "It takes a village to raise a child." We're going to talk about that. Are we still a village? Are we raising our children in a village? Come on back, soulmates. This is Dr. Sabrina, and you are tuned into Fox Soul special edition of Dr. Sabrina Unlocks, the Single Mother Chronicles. And we are diving into a deep discussion. And as we go back in, we're going to talk about the fact that there's an African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. However, do you feel that we are really acting as a village? Because there used to be a day that if you got out of line and got out of pocket, anybody on the street could get you together. We don't do that anymore. But I have a mother and daughter team here that really exemplifies what it means to be a village, Audra and Nia. And so tell us a little bit about the uniqueness of your situation. Audra, I'll let you go.
Well, you know what? To get a village, you got to be a village. And also to raise your child in a village, you have to give up some power and some control. So I never really looked at myself as a single parent, because I had all these people that were around me that loved me, cared for me, and were willing to help me raise my child the way I wanted her to be raised. They agreed with the things that, like those. So it's a lot of things. I have a lot of different beliefs. And actually, I was really controlling. I controlled the environment because I came into her world, but I let them, everybody was some parent. Like my best friend that was with me, and we made a commitment to raise our daughters together like daughters. She signed her out of school. She did things. If my daughter couldn't get me on the phone, she got permission from somebody in the village. And they said, I'll talk to your mama. I'll take care of it. So you got to be willing to give over. I gave over a little control, but it was a lot of love. I wanted my child to have all the love that she could get. I knew that I wasn't enough for her. And because I wanted her to have more than just me. And she ended up turning.
I want to stop there, because when you say I knew that I was not enough for her, that we need a variety, we need some diversity when it comes to what things are put into our children. Nia, I want to hear from you about the fact that your daughter lives in Atlanta and you live in Dallas. Tell us a little bit about that.
So first, I got a job opportunity in Dallas, and I was going to obviously move my daughter to Dallas, and we were going to be in Dallas and, thug it out. Right. And, I told my daughter's father really at the last minute that I was going to move, because I don't know, subconsciously, I thought that he wasn't going to care, or just be like, okay. And he fought me tooth and nail about it. Like, he's like, what do you mean she's leaving? Like, what, like, you are taking literally my heart away from me. And like, he was so adamant. The only reason why my daughter is in Atlanta is because this Black man in this space of a whole bunch of Black men not wanting to take care of their kids, going ghost or whatever else, this Black man was fighting me to take care of his daughter. And as much as it still even rips me to pieces today, that was something that I had to release. Like my mother just said, it was something I had to, because he was a Black man was advocating for being there for his Black daughter, something that I did not have. And I didn't want to take that from her. So that's our situation now. And I'm the one who's got to travel and go back and forth and make the calls and, you know, all that stuff because this Black man wanted to take care of his daughter. And that's just what it is.
I love the fact that you have this as an example, because so often in our community we hear just all the negatives about Black men and what they don't do. But we have a situation where he stood up, he stepped up. And so sometimes women, we are locked into the thought that they can't, they're not able to. We have to open up our minds to really look at it, and not just through the lens of our feelings, but looking at the situation. And so often we don't do that. And so I do have a comment that we had from someone of our soulmates. His name was Michael Perry, and he said, the idea of a woman asking a man to pay for a dinner or a meal for their kids is a major turnoff. So ladies, don't do that, because we want to be in an ebb and a flow. We want to give and we want to be able to receive, but we don't want to always just be the receiver, because sometimes women do that. We expect everyone to do for us, but it has to be an ebb and a flow. And so we do have a soulmate video about co-parenting. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Shay from Los Angeles, and my question is, you have two people that have been co-parenting for quite a while now, and now all of a sudden it seems as though there is a difficulty in co-parenting. Like, we have different ideas of how to parent all of a sudden. What is the best solution for that?
What do you think, ladies, is the best solution when you're talking about co-parenting and we have different spaces and you've been doing it for a long time? Let me go to Audra.
That is so funny you came to me. That's one of the reasons why I'm so happy I was a single parent, because I ain't have to do that. I don't like all that. My way or the highway, dog. I got everybody in my village on my program. Look, we gonna, as for being my house, we gonna serve this Lord. You know, you gotta compromise. That's what happens when you join in with somebody else. You gotta compromise. You gotta give a little bit. But my daughter's father, and he wasn't a daughter's father, my baby daddy told me that he was going to take her to the strip club and show her how to roll a blunt. Now, I was about 8 months pregnant, and I knew it was over. I was like, oh, you ain't gonna never see my child. I'm running my child straight to church. and I didn't have to deal with that. So that's why I love the fact that I was a single parent. It was only this single mind that made the decisions. But when you're dealing with somebody else, you got to compromise.
Definitely have to compromise. And we got to compromise and go to our final break. We'll be right back with more of Dr. Sabrina Unlocks. Hey, soulmates, we are winding down this episode of Dr. Sabrina Unlocks. And I want to go straight to my panel of amazing women. And I'm going to start with Nia. I need one final closing thought. Nia?
At the end of the day, lead with love, lead with the mutual respect that you have for one another and the love that you have for your child, and release your ego. And that's it.
Pilar? Uh-oh, you on mute. We can't hear you, baby.
Sorry, guys. If you're a single parent, it's okay to ask for help. You advocate for your kids at all times. And know that impossible doesn't apply to you, and you'll be fine.
Audra?
Being single doesn't mean you have to do it alone. Allow your kids to get all the love and guidance and support they can from all of your resources.
Big 50.
Hi. Just stay amazing. Teach your children to love and to share love and have love for one another, and be respectful. And thank you, Dr. Sabrina. You're amazing.
Oh, I love you. Jackie Clark Chisholm.
There's a scripture that says, in all thy ways acknowledge him and he shall direct thy path. And I just want to encourage everybody out there that before you do anything or whatever you're contemplating doing, acknowledge God and pray and ask God to give you direction and to give you an understanding of how to do what it is that you're trying to do with your children and in life.
and in life. And so with that, I want to thank you for joining us tonight as we celebrate Women's History Month as well as Single Parent Awareness Day. And as a woman, as a parent, you must make sure that everything you do, in order to unlock it, you need to care. And care is an acronym. The C is that you need to be coachable. How do you get better if can't nobody tell you nothing? The A, you need to have an attitude of gratitude because you have way more to be thankful for. If you woke up and could get up, be thankful. The R is to be righteously responsible. If you did it, say you did it, because you can't heal from it unless you own it. And then lastly, I used to say embrace excellence, but I understand if you embrace it, you can let it go. So now I say embody it. Bring your A game to every game. Thank you so much to the soulmates that chimed in. We love you. Take care and enjoy your single parent day. I love you. See you next time.